The presentation, or the presenters today, they asked me to give a brief introduction, and there were three main things I would like to point out to everyone here today. And the first one was, and it's specifically a question to the presenters. Can everybody mute their microphone, please? So the first distinction I would like to make is the difference between AI and generative AI. So and without going into too much technical details, it's quite an important distinction that we can make. Let me try to explain it with an example. If you go through, for example, Amazon or through Netflix or these kind of websites, then you get a lot of suggestions for further reading, further listening, further looking at them. For example, if you buy a washing machine on Amazon, maybe you also get some commercial of a dryer, these kind of things. Well, that is typically AI. So there's a lot of data, and they use that data to give you suggestions, but the suggestions are always from that same data. And that's the big difference with generative AI. Generative AI, as the word says, it generates new content. And the examples, yeah, we know a lot of them, but for example, ChatGPT, these kind of deep fake videos that you see, well, these are things that generate new content. And that's a big difference between AI and generative AI. And that new content, and I use the phrasing very well, it generates new content, because there's a lot of debate and discussion that generative AI doesn't create things, it generates. It's always a probabilistic model, but more on that within the sessions today. And the second thing I would like to point out today is that there are a lot of things, but a huge amount of topics that we can discuss regarding to AI. And we can have it, there is something to say about the ethics, there is something to say about the ecological impact. You can say something about the potential in the job market, or even in the medical opportunities, and so on and so on and so on. But today we made a choice, and the choice is to have this webinar about educational media production. So it's a very specific look at the use of AI without, and a few of the presenters will have discussion about ethics and so on, but the main focus here is on the production of educational media. And that is, I think, a very good bridge to my third point, and that is the disruptive potential of AI. And I think that is something that we cannot overemphasize. And today we do not have to talk about our dystopian thoughts of the end of the world and how everything is going to get very worse in the future. But today is about the interesting potential for education. What can we do? Where do we see a lot of opportunities? So let's first start by getting a little bit of the view of the temperature in the room, and this being here a digital room. If everything goes well, I will be starting a poll right now. And if some of the other people could nod, that would be very helpful. Yeah, I see a few people nodding. Okay, so there is a poll open right now with the first question: how often do you use AI tools? And you see a few examples there. And then there is also a second question, and you can all read it on the screen, and we'll look at the result, or at least we can look at results together within a few seconds. Okay, so let's say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll end the poll, and let's have a look. So we can see here, and it's a little bit small for me, but it's just okay, that the most of the people here at the webinar today are using AI tools very often, so at least on daily, weekly, or monthly basis. That's quite interesting, but it's not that surprising for us that people who are already using AI are interested in webinars about AI. So it's not that big of a surprise. And then if we look at the second question, we see the activities that you use AI for. And then we see, I think translation is quite big, and also image generation. And also, that doesn't surprise us, especially the image generation, because today is about creating educational media. So you are all within that field, I presume. But then there are a few others creating courses and lesson plans, quite interesting, of course. Also, data analysis is being ticked on a lot, and a few others. So we'll keep this full in our, let's say, in our back, and we can have a look at it in the discussion later on today. But without any further ado, as they say in English, let me please introduce the people who are presenting today. First will be up. The first one who will be up will be Martin. He's from King's College in London, the UK, as you know. Second, we'll have Janne and Lotta from the University of Oulu, if I pronounce it right, and that's in Finland. Then we have Sandra from the University of Calgary, and as we all know, that's in Canada. And Maria will join the same presentation, and she will do this from Leeds in the UK. And last but not least, we'll have Tanja, and she will be joining us from VU, Germany. Without any further explanation, I will ask everybody who will be presenting just to quick introduce themselves, because in the past I've introduced people and it can generate some very awkward situations. So Martin, can you please take the floor?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Andy. I'm Martin Compton. I work at King's College London. I am now the academic lead for AI in education because of the work that I've been doing. But really, I consider myself to be primarily of the education discipline. I've been teacher educator for a long time, although in the long and distant past, my first love was history. So nice to be with you all today. Andy, did you mean for everybody to introduce themselves or me to go straight into my presentation? I wasn't clear.
You can just go straight to your presentation, Martin.
Okie dokie. So I'm going to share a screen here with you. You should be able to see that now. Just give me a thumbs up if you can. That would be great. Okay, so that is great. And what I'm going to do is talk you through a little bit about the approach that we're taking very briefly at King's College London, because I think it's important to contextualize the work that we do in media production or whatever our relationship to these technologies happens to be in the wider context of our institution, of the sector, of the country, perhaps even Europe, which is seeing some new regulation this week, in contrast to, say, the States, that's got a much broader and difficult and troublesome context, I think. Anyway, let's get on with things. Here we go. So hopefully you can see that quick illustration there. We're framing a lot of the work we're doing at King's as a sort of lab, so King's AI in Education Lab, and it's a multifaceted approach that we're taking. So we've got staff guidance that I chaired and led on the production of, student guidance, and both of these heavily involved student participation and contribution. We're doing what a lot of institutions are doing. We're trying to workshop our way through this and have a series of events. We've got novice events going, all this kind of stuff. We are lucky to have Professor Ogus Akar working at King's, who's developed the PAIR framework, which I can link to a little bit later if people want to have a look at that. And we've funded some research projects, and we've produced a self-access MOOC on generative AI in higher education, which is now up to about 3,500 participants. And again, I'll share a link with that to that with you later. I'm able to do all of these things because as an institution, we've kind of bought into the idea that in order to understand, drive some of the narratives, rather than being responsive, we have to engage with this. Andy talked about, ethical concerns. I'm not going to be concentrating on those today, but suffice to say, I think it's important that we do acknowledge and address these as we go forward. So that's the kind of context that I'm working in, one that's pretty supportive, though with 9 faculties, we've got lots and lots of very diverse views about this. People worried about copyright, people worried about academic integrity, all of that kind of stuff. So all I can do is plug away from all these different angles and try and encourage people to perhaps see things differently, perhaps see things positively, perhaps find a way forward that supports their own work, their own professionalism, their own workflows. And one of those ways is through the way in which I use media for my own teaching responsibilities and so on. So I can't remember how it happened, but I was invited, I think, by Dovey or someone else at Media and Learn, I can't remember who it was now, to contribute an article about the short course that we produced. And just the other day, I thought, oh, that article that I did for Media and Learning would make a nice example for an AI technology that has really helped me with my workflow. And I just want to quickly show you this now. This is something you may have come across. This is Recast. So what it does with any browser-based text, in this case, the 751-word article that I wrote for Media and Learning, it turns it into a simulated podcast. And I think what it does is it illustrates some of the capabilities and powers of these technologies and really starts to challenge the way that we think about the kind of media that we're producing, particularly in terms of having multimedia strands of the same thing that we produce. So I used to try and do an audio version of my blog post, for example. But with this, I'm thinking, actually, I can get AI to do, generative AI, in this case, to do a lot of the legwork. It synthesizes, summarizes the key points, and then synthesizes a podcast. It sounds a little bit like...
This is a recast of the 700-word piece, Evolving Generative AI Literacy in Education with a New Free Course, from Media and Learning. Let's listen in.
The article we're talking about today is all about the impact of artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, on higher education. It seems like every day there's talk about these,
etc., etc. You get the idea. So all of that is automated and it's done in seconds. I pay for a Recast account because I got fed up with all the pop-ups, but I really like this. It's very rare that I will pay beyond the freemium versions of these tools, given how many of them that I'm experimenting with and using. But this is one that really made me think, because it's driving us to think about the affordances of audio. I think it has real inclusivity potential, and it's something that's so quick, and tapping into that functionality, that synthesis functionality of generative AI in a really, really creative and clever way. Another example I want to show you is this. It's a 30-second video of me saying hello in multiple languages. And while you're watching this, think about how this is an illustration of technologies coming together in quite a remarkable way. We've got translation using a large language model. We've got synthesis, voice synthesis, so it replicates my voice in a different language. And it's got video manipulation in multiple languages, offering all sorts of potentials, I think, in terms of media production for education especially. Hi, I'm Martin Compton, and nice to meet you all.
这是我在家里穿着典型的衣服，身处典型的环境中。Dette hvor jeg måske laver 40% af mit arbejde. بقية الوقت سأرتدي قميصا وأذهب إلى المكتب في كلية الملك لندن. В будь-якому випадку радий познайомитися з вами всіма. Це задоволення бути тут.
I look forward to working with you today. So that's an illustration of where we're at, I think, with some of the more creative and combined potentials of generative AI technologies. This coming together to create something fairly seamless, highly accurate, The biggest problem of all of those, by the way, is with the Mandarin. And it seems from different Mandarin speakers that understanding and comprehension is actually quite limited because of the way that it's replicated my accent. So there's all sorts of really interesting things going on there. To address Michael's question in the chat about resistance, I think, you know, we have degrees of it across a continuum, from the really, really highly resistant and skeptical to the let's just do whatever the heck we like with it people. And it's really interesting. Just to give an illustration of the kinds of things that I'm doing in terms of my own media on a daily basis and using this to kind of leverage interest with colleagues, here are a bunch of things that I do, you know. So in terms of media production, I will use ChatGPT or Claude AI for ideation, for the generation of a script, for generating ideas about the way that that video might look. I use it for transcription. Many of us will do that automatically. This meeting is being recorded. It will generate a transcript. I could take that transcript out if I was media and learning and run it through a large language model and turn it into a summary of this session, which I can share back with people who are here or maybe people who missed it in an automated way. It's, you know, it's remarkable. I could then take that text from the transcript and turn it into a series of multiple choice questions that could feed into a media artifact that I've created. So many potentials there as well. I can upscale, change the quality of transcripts. I don't know if any of you auto-generate transcripts in YouTube, but you'll know that it doesn't punctuate it very well. No uppercase letters, missing full stops and commas. You know, if you take the raw text from YouTube, put it into ChatGPT with a clear prompt, it will do all of that legwork for you that previously I'd been doing myself. We saw how many people use illustrations already. The 3 images here you can see are AI generated thumbnails that I use on my own videos. I've shown you the translation. I think there's a lot of potential as well for creating audio soundtracks or background music that's copyright free. You know, I know there are issues about taking work and labor away from people, but these are the kinds of things that I find myself doing. One thing that I've always hated doing is writing a video summary when I produce a video. Take the transcript and I can now give a really swift instruction to ChatGPT or Bard or Bing Chat or whatever to write me a summary in a particular tone or style. And the other thing that I think is really growing on me at the moment are the potentials for inclusive practice, for accessibility practice. So one simple thing that you can do now in Bing Chat, which we have freely available if we have a Microsoft account, or I use the pro version of ChatGPT, and that's to create alternative text to describe images or other accessibility functions. So there's a whole bunch of things going on there. If you follow the link to these slides later, you will see that I've got a playlist of videos all about different aspects of the ways in which I'm recommending using generative AI to students and to colleagues. You can have a look at that at your leisure. There's an example here of an AI-generated soundtrack, which I mentioned. You can play and listen to and put your hands over your ears if you like, but it's really quite interesting what you can do. You know, a unique piece of audio, never been heard before. There are a couple of blog posts here where I've used the transcript from media to create an automated piece of text. Again, that multimedia approach. AI video avatars is something that I think is really interesting because I don't like these at all, but there's an example there for you to think about and scrutinize. And there's a link to the short course, which looks like this. You see, we've got over 3,500 people on there where we talk about things like, can AI be creative? Again, going back to something that Andy was referring to at the beginning. And this image illustrates one of the posts in there. It was created by my daughter using a 3-word prompt. Chibi cyberpunk duck is what she typed. I didn't know what chibi meant. I didn't really know what cyberpunk meant, actually. So 2 or 3 words I didn't know, and she's got up something like this. And I asked the question on the course, is it my daughter who's being creative, or is it AI that's being creative? And I think that's a question I'd like to hear your contributions to. So I was asked for some takeaways. I'm just rounding up here now. These are my takeaways here. I think we need to ask ourselves, why are we asking machines to do these things that I've been asking it to do? What do we lose and what do we gain? So I might be gaining time, but am I just filling that time by creating 2 videos instead of 1? Am I just increasing my labor, doing somebody else's labor? What is going to be lost here? Am I using it because it's a novelty? I think AI video avatars are largely novelty value. I'm not sure it adds anything. A lot of people describe them as creepy. Why would I bother with that? I need to be convinced on that. But in terms of translation, I can't speak Mandarin, can't speak Arabic, I can't speak Ukrainian. So if I want to create a video in those languages, there is a technology that now enables me to do that in a fairly convincing and compelling way. Above all, what does the use of these technologies do to enhance the resources I produce, or the teaching I do, or the assessments I do? What does it add, or what does it improve in terms of my workflow? And if I can't answer that really quickly, I need to take a step back and say, hang on a minute, maybe the analog way was a better way of doing that. I think in order to get people engaged, again, to go back to Michael's question earlier in the chat, is we need to help people find their thing. What is it that will help them do something differently, better, more creatively, more interestingly, or faster in their work, so that they can actually start to engage with these new technologies in interesting and dynamic ways. So that's me done. I'm going to turn off my screen share. I thank you for your attention, and I'll hand back to Andy now.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. Let me say that the 3 takeaways you give for me are very thought-provoking, as we say. My mind is blowing up right now, so it's very, very well. Thank you very much for these questions. I see there's a lot of questions and some things in the chat. Let's keep them for the discussion at the end and head over to the next 2 presenters immediately, and that is Janne and Lotta. Janne and Lotta, can you take the presentation and give us a quick overview?
Yes. Hello, my name is Janne Länsitie, and I come from the University of Applied Sciences in Oulu, from the School of Professional Teacher Education.
And my name is Lotta Pakanen, and the same organization. We both work as senior lecturers and are really interested in trying everything concerning AI.
Yeah. Lotta, will you share the PowerPoint?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, a little bit from our background. We have both been quite involved with digital pedagogy for the past 10 to 15 years. And I should say that this AI thing kind of fell on our laps suddenly a little bit over a year ago, since we had an internal project providing assistance regarding different digital pedagogy related issues for our colleagues. So it just happened that we had an ongoing project dealing with these issues. So we kind of just took everything AI related and started doing that about a year ago. But yeah, Nick, our point of view is to look a little bit to the guidelines related to the use of AI, and what do those guidelines actually mean? What do we have to teach our staff, our teachers? What kind of things they need to know how to do with generative AI? Since about a year ago, we were in this situation. We knew there's a lot of things coming, and we did anticipate that there's going to be things that we need to react to. But we didn't have answer to who's responsible for taking care of these things, training teachers, helping students. What can we use? What can't we use? What are the limits and restrictions? Are we going to have access to the new tools, or are we just going to use whatever we find useful? Our IT didn't have guidelines yet, so we used whatever they had, and then kind of they did update it in the last couple of months to also deal with the AI issues. A lot of teachers were asking, what does this do to the learning in general? We still don't have that answer, but we do know what has happened to learning because of mobile devices in the last 10 to 20 years. So it will probably have some sort of impact, but it's too soon to tell what kind of impact what that impact is going to be. So obviously, a lot of programs are updating their curriculums, dealing with how they're going to deal with AI. And our job especially is to train teachers. And that's what we've been doing a lot in the past year.
And we are really happy to say that universities of applied sciences, they reacted pretty fast. And we have this rectors conference in Finland. It's called ARINI. And ARINI started this national working group. I was a part of that group, and our mission was to build recommendations for other universities of applied sciences on how to build their own guidelines and what sort of things we thought that should be taken into consideration when talking about AI in higher education. And this group, we started working early in 2023, and we finished our work in June 23. And here you can see the link, and from that link you can read our recommendations. They are also in English, so it's better that way. And most of the universities of applied sciences have applied these guidelines into action. So there were really a good success within those recommendations. But I think the most important part about the recommendations was this traffic light model, which has gained a lot of good responses from teachers and students, because it gives a pretty good visual clue on how to use AI, what is allowed and what is not allowed, and something between that. So in that working group, we decided that we would guide teachers and students by giving them 3 colors of the use of AI. And if we use the green color, it means that you can use AI in any way you want to. It's going to be a natural part of learning. We are not interested in how you used it, what tools or application you used. It's a natural part of learning, and you can use it any way you want, and you don't have to specify what have you done. And I think that us as a University of Applied Sciences, our students are really motivated for working life, and AI is a big part of working life. So this green light encourages students to use the AI in multiple ways. The yellow light, it's also pretty allowing, so you can still use AI in your studies, but you need to tell us what AI you used and how did you use the AI. So it gives a little bit narrower view on AI, but still it encourages you to use it. But I think that this yellow color is also a bit problematic, because the most common question we get is that what kind of use you must report. Do you have to report every use? So even that if you use the AI for just throwing ideas or building structures for your thesis, is this all the things that you need to report? Or is it just that if you generate text or pictures or things like that? So it's not an easy color. It's a pretty, it's a color that we have discussed, I think, the most within the teachers and students. Where do we draw the line? What kind of use must be reported, and what kind of use it's, still natural part of learning? And then there is this red light, and we wanted to make sure that the teachers have the opportunity for giving the red light. If they think that in this course it doesn't serve its function to use AI, the subject is something that you really have to think about yourself without the use of AI, we wanted to give the possibility to use the red light. So in this course, you cannot use AI. But if the teachers choose this red color, they must tell the students why. So it's not a color that you can just flip out and say that, okay, now we are not going to use any AI. You have to make sure that students understand that why the AI isn't allowed to be used here. So yeah, but it's really a good way for teachers to tell the students, in this course, we are using green light, in this course, we are using yellow light, etc. So a visual good way to tell and present the guidelines of AI use.
Okay, so moving forward to very practical things like, well, if we set local guidelines at our university regarding the use of AI, that will actually tell us what we have to do with our stuff. Because in the guidelines, it says some very particular things that require teachers to work in a particular way. So here's the three outtakes from those guidelines. So our university will ensure teachers' competence and provide training to support the use of artificial intelligence in teaching. So if we promise that, we have to organize it, and that means that teachers need to have some resources to actually learn to use these technologies in their work. So that had to be organized quite quickly. We also mentioned that when supervising and assessing students, assessing students, teachers must keep the focus on students' real competence and its development. Well, in the past 10 years, probably every university has put a lot of effort creating all kinds of online modules where most of the stuff is turned in the digital format. And now we know how easy it is to create different kind of assignments in the digital format. So of course, teachers are worrying quite a lot that how do I know that I'm actually assessing students' work rather than doing the silly game of assessing something that has been created with AI. And maybe even sillier game that a teacher is using AI tools to assess AI created content. So it can become a really silly game and nobody wants to go into that. So the focus has to be in authentic assessment of students' learning and competence. In the guidelines, we also mentioned that teacher has to inform the students about the principles, advantages, the challenges related to the use of artificial intelligence. So if teachers do not know this, they can't really operate according to the guidelines. So what we've been doing in the past year is building different kind of content, modules, guidelines, tasks, how to help teachers to actually put these guidelines into action. Yeah, next slide, please.
It has these animations
now. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so we will give you guys a couple of examples what we've been doing for the past years. So, and these all are linked in the different kind of AI media productions as well. So we try to give examples of those. So since last January, we've been providing these webinars for the whole university, and these have, they started with very general of what's happening, what's coming, what should be considered, and trying to involve teachers into creating those guidelines. And also teachers also have to update their curriculums. So we tried to get that process also started, that because obviously it means different things in different departments. Those in the IT or those in the social healthcare, those in the journalism, they see different things regarding the use of AI because they look it through the lenses of their own profession or their own faculty. So those webinars were the kind of first thing that we started producing, and those are still happening pretty regularly.
And because of that, because of the differences between the faculties and all, we decided to offer some on-demand training for smaller teams, and these have been pretty successful. They have been ordered a lot. We have been talking with our language center, with our language teachers about AI, how should they use it, and it has been really interesting because me and Janne, we are familiar with these maybe more general applications and tools. And when our professionals ask for tools for language teachers, for English teachers, we have to look a bit deeper at what kind of tools are available. But I think that the translation apps concerning translating texts are really popular now in our UES.
Yeah, and certainly our language center, they wanted to learn how to make these avatars and you know, the whole deepfake issue, how to make yourself speak in different languages, because they try to assess and teach the actual foreign language to the students. So again, of course, they want to learn the technology first. We also created, go ahead.
Yeah, and they were pretty relieved because the avatars, they spoke the language so perfectly, and they said that none of our students speak that perfectly.
We also created a 3-credit course for teacher training program, and we were hoping for huge success, that of course everybody wants to participate in this course, but we also realized that it's still fairly early, because we are in this bubble that we are interested in everything that happens, and like you guys who are participating today, you are already interested in this. But the reality seems to be that it's a little bit similar as with digital pedagogy and the tools related to that. It's a huge ship that turns very slowly. So there are all these teachers and all the people who will get interested in it right away and want to try everything. But we have a lot of teachers and teacher students and staff members who have barely started this process. So we thought that everybody wants to learn how to make videos and everything with the AI, but very slowly it's beginning to gain success.
And it has been really nice to realize that this fall, we are not the only ones who are providing AI courses and seminars for teachers. We have many partners, for example, Microsoft, and it has been a really pleasure that they have also started to offer teachers some kind of materials and courses. And we also have participated in those courses, and we are currently building this open Azure IT bot, which is going to swallow a lot of our study guides and other materials, so that we can build a bot that truly assists students and teachers in specific such subjects.
Yeah. And the last 2 boxes are pedagogical training with the use of digital badges and open access course for staff and students, because we rarely manage to provide something that reaches all our staff and all our higher education students. So there's still a lot of need for material that is always available regardless of the time and place. So that's kind of thing we're working on at the moment, building open access course for staff and students that they can access all the time.
And we realized that those, courses for higher education students and teachers, a lot of general courses are already there. So our perspective is not on the general aspect of AI, but how to use AI in your studies and as a teacher. So our view is a bit narrower than just the general AI.
I think that's our 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janne and Lotta. Thank you very much. Again, for me, the same as with Martin a few minutes earlier, a lot of thought-provoking things. Thank you very much for that. Especially the bot assisting students. I think, as I see it in the chat as well, I can presume there will be a lot of questions later on about that. But again, because time management is always a sharp thing, the next 2 speakers will be Sandra and Maria from the University of Calgary and University of Leeds. Take it away.
So much. Just give me a second. Okay, thanks so much for having us. Our presentation today is entitled, "What can educators and students do with AI? 101 creative ideas to use AI in education." We are an international or interdisciplinary team. So 2 of us are here today. That's Maria and myself, Sandra. Maria Pavlopoulou is a student in the MA Digital Education at the University of Leeds in the UK. I'm a researcher at the University of Calgary in Canada. We also have with us on the team, Christina Ranzi and Antonio Martinez Arboleda. They're both also in Leeds. And we have Mariana Cariazzuri, who's at the University of Macedonia in Greece. So they're all part of our team, and we work closely together on what we are presenting today. We are all part of the Creative HE community, which is an open community that brings together education practitioners as well as students interested in everything to do with creativity and play in higher education. So as a group, we offer space for experimentation and exploration of new and unusual ideas. We co-organize events, courses, and inquiries, and we develop new creative practices, as well as we undertake scholarly inquiry and research. And the latest project we're involved in is we look at Gen AI. So that's one of our big projects at the moment, which we explore as a group. Creative HE also brings together community and engages in building peer support. So that's a very, very important part of what we do as well. So bringing those two together, our interest in novel, new creative practice with technology, as well as building community is part of that big project we're involved in and work on at the moment. And I hand over to Maria, who will tell a little bit more how we marry digital interests with creativity.
Exactly. Thank you, Sandra. Hello from me as well. We would love to read this quote from Thomas and Brown's book, A New Culture of Learning. Only when we care about experimentation, play, and questions more than efficiency, outcomes, and answers, do we have a space that is truly open to the imagination. And where imaginations play, learning happens. This quote really captures the mentality and the philosophy that we support regarding the use of artificial intelligence in education. As an MA student in digital education at the University of Leeds, I have witnessed that creativity, play, and experimentation is a key to integrate AI into education. This experimentation may raise more questions than it answers, but let us all embrace this uncertainty.
And so embracing that uncertainty or that newness that Gen AI still has, we developed with our inquiry a guide, which is entitled 101 Creative Ideas to Use in AI in Education. It's a crowdsourced collection that is available open access and really brings in some ideas of what people do with AI. The collection came to be that we put out the call in early 2023 to educators as well as to students to ask what they were doing with generative idea. And if we remember back, so that was the time when sort of ChatGPT was released to the wider public and people started to become aware of generative AI. AI has been out there for much longer, but it entered sort of the public awareness. It also entered the awareness of educators. And so we thought in these early days, what were people doing? What were they engaging with? What were they creating? And so we put out this open call and asked people to submit what they were doing at that time. So were they creating resources? Were they creating materials, courses? But also we asked students, what were they doing with AI? And also we asked for critical voices. So what were people thinking? And, what were maybe some hiccups they were experiencing? And so with that call out, we got lots and lots of submissions. We selected 101 submissions on what people, educators as well as students, were doing from 18 countries. We have in the final guide now 83 contributions from either individuals or groups of individuals. So some people or some groups have submitted 2 ideas, mainly from educators but also educators, students, and researchers. Mainly ideas from HE, so higher education, that's universities, but also 11 ideas from other educational institutions. So that's either colleges or nonprofits or private organizations. The majority of our contributions are in English, actually 100, and there is one in Spanish. And we just heard and seen since, those very early days, translation has now become much bigger and easier. And so our lookout is obviously to diversify. So we're much more interested to also have contributions now and ideas in different languages, because it has become much easier to translate. We have mainly in that first collection single authored ideas, and we think that mainly has to do because at that time people were trying out at home on their own. And we hope, by now people are also more sharing, and I think what we see out there, that's true. There is some co-authored ideas, only 3, but there is people that were even in its very early stages collaborating on that. Putting together those ideas has been a big task. So we asked for submissions at that time through a sort of slide online share, and we received them in various forms and formats. So thinking about how do we make those ideas accessible to a wider audience has been a very, very important part of our work. We worked with a student designer here at the University of Calgary, Bushra Hashim, and she's been tasked to put a design together that is, usable as well as of interest to a diverse readership. So she worked with layout and colors so that text and non-decorative images are legible for a broad audience. So she put text and figure elements in the correct order for screen readers, and she added alt text descriptions for images. We have asked for submission of those, but they have not always been included. And if we think about generative images, they're still not necessarily part of that process. So we added those descriptions to our guide. The table of contents and sort of the navigation landing page are color-coded, as well as linked to the individual ideas. So the idea is that this has become sort of a more easy navigatable resource. We're well aware there is much work to be done in terms of accessibility of this resource as well as other resources. For example, we have lots of images that have been submitted to us as screenshots. These are obviously not really user-friendly. We also grappled with references and long URLs that link to the original created resource, as well as, images and other materials. So at the moment, we've taken out those long URLs and put them separately, but we're working on, making that more accessible and user-friendly in a guide. Oops, somebody in. Please mute. So for us as a group, generative AI in education has been very much on the forefront as for everybody else. However, we haven't been so much occupied with the technologies themselves, but more about what our people, especially educators and students, are doing. And especially how can we share and bring the education community together to kind of make visible what people are doing on the ground, what is created and how are things created. I'm going to hand over to Maria, who says a little bit more about what she's doing currently in her studies with Gen AI.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm happy to share my own experience as a student to use the AI tools in order to give voices to different sides in an academic debate. Recently, I was assigned to create a debate between contiguous and distance education. So I thought, why shouldn't I make this a more dynamic discussion instead of choosing a more traditional route? So I decided to use the arguments generated by ChatGPT 3.5 and leverage the capability of iVooV and Nero AI, both Canva extensions, in order to create a moderator of these discussions, as well as two personas that will support the contrasting arguments. You can have a link in the chat. What made this project particularly interesting for me was that AI could truly interpret, in a way, these different point of views. The personalization features, the customization of voice, of tone, accent, as well as of the appearance of the personas were great assets, and I took advantage of them. However, despite the various options, these customization required significant time and effort. And moreover, AI could not truly identify some complex sentence structure, so I had to often re-edit my text. All in all, reflecting on this experience, I think that I will keep on experimenting with such tools and many more. And I'm looking forward to make a submission to the 2 new calls for creative HE community, which Sandra will shortly introduce to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. So I think that is sort of illustrating that we feel it's very important that we have that exchange between educators as well as with students. In our collection, as well as generally, I think, in the discussion, we still have a very much European-centered focus. You know, things are still very much focused on the English-speaking community. So Martin was talking a little bit about how different languages play out in Gen AI, and Maria was experimenting with ChatGPT in Greek. And obviously, there is a little bit more hiccups still than in the English-speaking version. So we have, you know, see that as well as in the practicalities, as well as in our submissions. So we have, you know, a particular focus still. And I think, you know, it's very important that we are aware of this. But also the sharing, you know, can be problematic. So we're working on different ways of making things that people do accessible. Yet we feel there is much opportunity to build those networks, and especially when we talk about Gen AI and new technologies and social media production, what we're doing and how we're doing things. And we think this discussion is very, very important. That is the link to the guide, which will be in the chat. And so we're having 2 new calls Maria was mentioning. So one is specifically for students, the other one is for educators. So we're really interested to hear from students what they are doing with Gen AI. So what ideas they're developing. And we're happy for students to submit their ideas together with their educators and to openly declare on what they are doing. So for example, we just had a chat with a student who uses Gen AI software as a study buddy. So that was one idea where we're very interested in this sort of back and forth discussion this student were having, but also to hear from other students in media production, what they're creating. The other call is really for educators, so what learning resources they're creating. And that is really in the broadest sense. So that doesn't need to be a product. It can be also a course. It can be anything that, you know, you in education do with AI. And we're happy to have very critical voices. So in our first collection, we have questions on ethics. We have questions on credibility, on accessibility. So if you create something or if you come across something when creating something and you are critically aware of some issues, we're happy to have those submissions too. So these are just 2 new calls out there to the community. That's a little bit of a plug for us, but we really think it's very important that we're continuing that discussion on Gen AI together and that we're having that discussion because we still think we're all pretty new to it. and tools and technologies are evolving really fast. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Sandra and Maria. It's again, my head is spinning of the things that you all said. Very interesting things. 101 creative ideas, a lot. And it reminds me of just a small anecdote before we go to the next speaker. Last week I had a discussion with a student, and she mentioned to me that when she talks to ChatGPT, she always is very polite and very, let's say, being very polite to ChatGPT. And then I asked, why are you doing that? Because there's a lot of researchers saying that you better give very clear prompts instead of asking questions, just give a statement. And she said, well, what if AI would take over the world? At least I was very gentle to them. It was quite interesting. So, and why I say this is because I really liked in your talk the point that you take the stance of the students very well for a lot of reasons. But we see Maria here present. That's one thing. But also the call you presented, the students take in a very prominent place there, and so. I really welcome that, and thank you very much for that, Sandra and Maria. And that being said, it's time for Tanja, and Tanja will be joining us from Germany. Tanja, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hello everyone. Let me just share my screen. Thank you so much for these great inspirations, Andy, Martin, Janne, Lotta, Sandra, and Maria. And indeed, we are experimenting a lot, all of us who are in the education context. And what I present today is pretty much looking forward. So what we heard was what has been done so far since AI took over, and my part will be a little bit more focusing on what we are going to do. My name is Tanja Tillmanns. I present today here an Erasmus project. I'm from the Friedrich-Alexander University, Erlangen and Nuremberg, from the Institute of Education, Institute of Learn Innovation. And as the name already says, we are very interested in innovation, particularly in digital education. Personally, I'm a researcher there, but I'm also a lecturer in another institution. And that's also where my personal interest comes from. So when I heard today Martin, Sandra, and Maria talking, particularly Jan and Lotta, I felt very much inspired for my own praxis. And of course, I also took down a lot of notes for this project that I'm going to introduce to you today. So the project is called TALAI. That stands for Teaching and Learning with Artificial Intelligence in Higher Education. You can see here a QR code that brings you directly to our website that we will be filling in the next 2-3 years to come. What I will be presenting here today is a little bit of the context. What is this project about? I will talk a little bit about the aims of this project, what we are planning to get out of it. And last but not least, of course, I will present the consortium. And here in this picture, you can already see at least 1 or 2 familiar faces, Sally and Dovi on the left-hand side, followed by my colleague Alfredo and me. Then we have Susmita and Peter from the Fachhochschule für Südwestfalen, and we have also 2 partners from the Amsterdam University. Yeah, what's the context? We have talked about it already quite in depth. I would just like to contextualize a bit where we are coming from with this project. We know that the digital transformation, of course, plays a key role in society. And we need to prepare the future professionals to manage AI, particularly ethically. So the focus of this project is really on thinking about how we can use AI in a more ethical manner. As the introduction of AI in the labor market, of course, have long-term changes we strongly call as well for an ethical integration already in the higher education context. So the future leaders can actually be prepared for an ethical use of AI. In line with these strategic priorities of the Digital Education Action Plan, TALAI, our project, addresses the needs of academic teachers and students to harness the potential of AI. And we do this by giving them the right competencies and skills. And here the right skills and competencies fall under the umbrella of AI literacy, which we understand, according to Long and Magerko, as a set of competencies that enable individuals to critically evaluate AI technologies, communicate and collaborate effectively with AI, and use AI as a tool online, at home, and in the workplace. So quite holistically, we see that AI has not only impact on our professional life, but of course also on our personal life. And I think we can all relate to that here. What is interesting, and I was very, very much interested in the examples that we heard from some of the speakers today, is that many teaching staff currently do not really believe that they have the capacity to use AI tools. In my own practice as a lecturer, I see colleagues who fully embrace it, and I see as well some lecturers and professors even who are a bit more reluctant to use it. So it's quite a little bit of a blend, I feel. But however, I think it's really important when we think about teacher education or teacher training that we give future teachers or even current teachers the belief that they can use these AI tools. And that has, of course, a lot to do again with AI literacy. So first of all, we need to make sure that the lecturers have this literacy. Currently, there's a lot of training. Now we have seen there perhaps it's not a lack of training, but maybe more so a lack of interest, which I also found quite interesting. Of course, in the last months, we see more and more institutions preparing and offering training courses. And I think that's really important, particularly if it's a training that also addresses these emerging ethical questions that also come with the use of AI tools in higher education. Yeah, what do we aim to do? We want to address the risks and challenges of AI. And at the same time, we want to meet the growing demand of students for educational opportunities with AI. I lecture mainly in an international context with international students, and there we can see an increased interest in using AI. So it's important that we as teachers also prepare for these kind of opportunities. And of course, we need to all become more aware of these ethical concerns that surround AI tools, such as autonomy, bias, fairness, accountability, transparency, autonomy, agency, and of course, inclusion. So for educators, lecturers, teachers, it's important that we distinguish between doing ethical things and doing things ethically. And then we can be able to choose pedagogies that are actually suitable for our target group and are not, having any unintentional consequences or unethical aspects addressed that we as teachers actually didn't intend to mean. So TALAI here as a project addresses this need for these innovative pedagogies. How can we integrate AI as a tool to teach? And also, what does it mean actually for assessment? Here we are not talking about assessment with AI, but rather assessment in the context of AI. So what changes need to be done in terms of assessment? And how can we become more creative and innovative with our pedagogical approaches? So what we want to do, we just started with our research. We are going to conduct a systematic literature review and some empirical research in higher education institutions. And we will try to find out, similar to what Sandra and Maria are doing, how is it currently used? I'm pretty sure we will reference as well your work here to look at what is the current usage of teachers? What kind of guiding rules and principles exist? What kind of policies inform an ethical AI application in higher education? And of course, what is already being reported on in terms of assessment in the context of AI? Following that, we will create policy recommendations that specifically focus on assessment in higher education in the context of AI. And we will generate a teacher training of which the content will be determined as well a little bit by the research, and also looking closely what is until then already on the market, because we want to provide something that actually generates value to the broader teaching community. This teacher training will be embedded in a digital platform, and here we will provide a space for teachers to discuss, exchange ideas, exchange experience, provide material for self-study in order to constantly update ourselves. I mean, every day there is a new tool. I find myself every day writing down a new tool. Oh, I have to try out this, or I have to try out this. So I think a platform could also organize it pretty much or similar maybe in a way that Sandra and Maria showed us with their 101 tools. Yeah, we will have the ultimate aim, of course, with this digital platform and the teacher training to enhance the AI literacy of teachers and therefore as well, of course, of the students. All of this will be complemented with some online coffee talks. And these are quite important because here we not only want to connect with some experts, maybe like Martin, who have already extensive experience with in using AI in their teaching practice, but we also want to use this as an opportunity to learn collectively about an ethical utilization of AI in higher education. So we will have debates and discussions online, and those kind of knowledge that will be generated in these coffee talks will of course inform as well our outcomes such as the policy recommendation, teacher training, and the digital platform. So this is what we aim to do. Maybe a little bit more about our partners. As I said before, I'm from the Institute for Learn Innovation. We focus pretty much on innovative pedagogies, research in digital learning, and all fields of education as long as it's related to digital education. We are a very multidisciplinary team. We have media, IT experts, we have researchers, and we are widely involved in a lot of European research projects. And here Talai is one of our latest. And what is very important, and here we have as well value for this project, is that we are also responsible for training and coaching the teaching staff at the Friedrich Alexander University. Media and Learning, the host of this session, I don't think I need much introduction, will be very important for this project, particularly in terms of dissemination, connect with people like yourselves interested in it, because Talai is not meant to be a closed project. We pretty much want to engage and be open to learn as much as we can from different stakeholders or people interested in what we are doing. The University of Amsterdam, here we are mainly working with the Teaching and Learning Center. It's quite similar to ILI at FAU. They are located in the Faculty of Science, and they are focusing really on teacher training. They even have a university teaching qualification program for lectures, and they collaborate with different faculties across the universities. So they will be also quite important for not only for an empirical part, but also to develop the curriculum and the platform. Finally, we have the Fachhochschule Südwestfalen. This is where I'm also a lecturer. And yeah, we are focusing mainly in this institute on computer science, information and communication technologies. We focus, of course, on as an applied university on training future professionals, managers, and we are very successful to do this internationally. As I said, we have 4 international degree programs and a huge cohort of international students. This will be quite important for this project in order to learn as well empirically from different perspectives, and also it will inform and help us with the systematic literature review particularly. Yeah, this was it from my side. Thank you so much for listening to me. Please keep Tala in mind. Here you see the QR code. If you want to link in with us or join some discussions or anything, please never hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you so much for your attention. And I pass over again to Andy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanja. Again, very, very interesting. I've noted some things here in my little booklet, so we'll keep in touch. I'm pretty sure of that. But we still have a few more minutes, not that much, but we have a few more minutes for a discussion session. So maybe if there are any very urgent questions, just type your name in the chat, and then we'll give the floor to you, and then we can just ask you to open your mic. So again, if you have a question, type your name in the chat, and then we'll give you the floor.
Andy, I think Sabrina has a question for Martin.
Okay, I can't really see it right now, but just Sabrina, or first Sabrina, and then I see Edward has a question as well. But Sabrina, you are first.
Hi, thank you. I was just wondering if when you are making things like podcasts from summaries of articles and things like that, do you have to watch out for, I think they're called like hallucinations, I've heard them called, when it's bringing up information that's not actually true or in the article? Is that something that you've experienced, or is that not happening with those kinds of AI?
So I've been really impressed, actually, Sabrina, with the quality of the summaries. I've just put in the chat a link to half a dozen or so recasts that I did of our college-wide generative AI guidance. So we've got multiple pages for staff and students, and a lot of people were saying, yeah, this is all very well, but it's too comprehensive. We need a summary of this. And various one-pagers have been doing the rounds in different faculties, and I thought I'll give this a go and share this around. And I went through each one in turn, looking at what was included, what wasn't included. And although I would probably have done it differently myself had I done it, there were no hallucinations that I could see. And additionally, it's a resource that wouldn't exist if I hadn't had access to this AI resource, because I haven't got time to create audio digests of these things. And you know, this is a decision that's only been enabled by the technology itself. I can't guarantee or speak on behalf of them for it not doing that, because it does use language model technology to generate the syntheses. But I've been really impressed, I have to say.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Martin, for answering that question. Now we give the floor to Edward, but given the last name, I think I have to pronounce it as Edward, but take the floor.
That's okay, thank you, Andy, and it's a question again from Martin. I think it's similar to that phenomena with Bitcoin being described as a solution in search of a problem, and there's a certain amount of that going on with AI, that there's any number of websites out there that tell you all of these amazing things it can do, but if you have a specific request for images in particular, it doesn't get around that problem. You get people with 6 fingers, or you get a piece of equipment that doesn't have its digits correct, or whatever it might be, because it's a generative model. So, and then it also goes into translation. I was interested in what you were saying about, well, not translation, but transcription, sorry. That I wouldn't trust it to go and take a look into a bulk of information and then trust that its output, it would look nice, it would look like the real thing, but when I begin to read through it, I realize that it's full of errors or a failure to capture. And again, it's going back to that problem. Would you be better off going back and just doing it, you know, from scratch? So what I'm saying is that I have found it a useful tool. It'll save a certain amount of time, but it's a long way from something that you can just set it and forget it and let it go do its thing. So it's about trying to get that measure right, trying to find where the line is with that.
I agree. I mean, I think that I've been pleasantly surprised, increasingly surprised by the quality of the synthesis, particularly in tools like Recast. If you put a transcript from this meeting through, say, Claude, which will take 100,000 tokens and have that larger bulk of content, you can steer, of course, you can steer the summarization. So you can say, just give me all of the contributions from Edward, for example. So it's again down to effective and knowledge-driven prompt engineering, I think. But the question I asked in my presentation is at the heart of what you're saying. Why are we asking it to do that, and what is lost and what is gained? And I think we need to keep those questions at the forefront of our critical faculties when we're considering the affordances and the limitations. But I would say keep testing, keep trying, because the improvements are remarkable.
Huge.
Someone's just said in the chat there, Thomas said in the chat about custom GPTs, you can eradicate a lot of the hallucination effect by narrowing to your own data set, the you know, effectively creating your own foundation. And this is what our colleagues were talking about earlier here as well.
I would definitely describe the improvements that I've seen since using AI. I would describe it as Moore's law on speed. It is developing and correcting so quickly because it's been sent out into the community, into the wild, where people are just solving these problems very, very well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Edward.